Hi ladies, I hope you're ready for your first video. So we are going to very quickly cover the presidencies of Warren G. Harding, which is going to be from 1920 to 1923, and then Calvin Coolidge, who is just going to serve the rest of Harding's term, because spoiler alert, Harding dies, and then serve just one term himself. So these guys in the 1920s, the style that they have is extremely laissez-faire, so you can almost treat them really as the same. They're both really Republican, they are not going to regulate big businesses, and they are going to be really hands-off. And that's what people want in the 1920s. People don't mind that they don't have like a Theodore Roosevelt who is really going to crack down and make sure things are fair and follow the rules. They want that person who's just going to let them do almost whatever they want, because the 20s are a time to party. So they fit very well in the 1920s, but they also really don't do us any favors. So we're going to talk about them now. So please go to that post-war instability outline and go to that last section, section 3, where it says Harding and Coolidge. Okay? So Warren G. Harding is really an intelligent guy, but interestingly, he doesn't always act that way when he is going to be out in the public. And he is a Republican, he is from Ohio, and he is going to win that election of 1920. And he wins because he's very smart. We talked in class about what people are craving in those immediate years after World War I, and we said after a war, when everything's shaken up and everything's uncertain, you want stability. So when he is campaigning, he gives a very, very good phrase, and people eat it with a spoon. He says, how about a return to normalcy? That is his phrase, a return to normalcy. And when America hears that, they're like, yeah, that sounds great. I would love that. I would love to go back to the way things were. Of course, the way things were, you can't go back. That's impossible. But that's what Warren G. Harding sells. He sells a very isolationist, kind of nostalgic, simpler message, and people are going to love it, and he gets voted in. He is very pro-big business. He is going to do very classical Republican things, where we said classical Democrat things, more probably money spending, social programs. Warren G. Harding cuts the federal budget. He's going to lower taxes, and he lowers the taxes specifically on wealthiest Americans. So as you can imagine, this doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because you already have a widening gap between the very rich and the very poor, and that just makes it even bigger. Also, farmers are continuing to flounder. No one's helping farmers. Harding isn't going to, Coolidge isn't going to, Hoover, who we're going to talk about later, isn't going to. So these farmers just continue to really, really suffer. And as they're doing that, it's not getting better, and pretty soon we said their problems are going to become everybody else's problems. So he passes something called the Fordney-McCumber tariff. And it's a really high tariff. At first he thinks it's going to help farmers, because we know when you have a tariff encourages people to buy American goods. Good job. I know you said it. Because it makes the foreign goods more expensive. But this is a temporary fix, and it just really slows down all trade and farming and stuff with Europe, and it hurts everybody, because Europe's hurting too. Europe is going to have no money from Germany, and on and on. Just had a visitor, no big deal. We're continuing. So one of the biggest things of Harding's administration that's going to make him very famous and infamous, I should say, is the Teapot Dome scandal. So Teapot Dome, I know it sounds weird. It's actually a piece of land that was out in Wyoming. And this land was land belonging to the federal government. It was essentially like sanctified parkland, and that meant no business should be using it, right? Well, you're going to see the Secretary of Interior, whose name is Fall, he gives permission on the sly to this private company to start to drill for oil there. And of course, that's completely illegal. And he doesn't say anything about it, shush, because he's taking all this bribe money. So this is really wrong. This is really crazy. And when this is discovered, he goes to jail. So it's like a major cabinet member going to jail. And Warren G. Harding is on a cruise with his wife, and he has a heart attack. So we never find out if he knew about this. Was the heart attack brought on when he heard this news, and that's because he was part of it? Did he have the heart attack? We never know. We don't know if he knew about the Teapot Dome, but this scandal is going to be synonymous with his administration, and his vice president is going to be brought into office, Calvin Coolidge. So Vice President Calvin Coolidge now becomes president in 1923. Now Calvin Coolidge is the quietest guy ever. And I'm gonna tell you some funny stories in class. He just like hated talking. He wasn't even like shy. When someone's shy, they don't want to talk. Calvin Coolidge just like never wanted to speak. which is going to be, of course, interesting as a president to have that. So he was nicknamed Silent Cal. And Silent Cal is going to come in, and again, we remember him from the witch strike, Boston police strike, good job. And he worships industry and big business. He famously said, the business of America is business. So this guy is all about not regulating business, totally laissez-faire. That's how these guys are rolling. And he is doing very little involvement in big business. He also lowers taxes. He also cuts government spending. And he also doesn't help farmers. So again, really similar to Harding. He does something pretty amazing, though. It shouldn't have had to be done, and it's astounding in its irony that it happens now. But in 1927, Calvin Coolidge is going to make Native Americans citizens. So the Indian Citizenship Act is passed in 1924. So yes, you heard me right. The people who were here first in America, before anybody else came, were not citizens through the 1600s, 1700s, 1800s, or early 1900s. And now in 1924, the original people from America become citizens. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, right? And the effects of World War I continue to linger. So even though we are, moving on through the 20s, we still can't shake this. Just like we're going to talk about how people can't shake this in America, we really can't shake these effects of World War I. So first of all, we keep bankrolling Europe. We just are giving them money, 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 pretending, and we're also really thinking that it will never run out. And we don't think it's going to run out because the 1920s are so prosperous for us. But there will come a point in time where we say, hey, we need that money back. And they're going to say, I don't have it. I'm broke. And we're going to go, oops. And that's, of course, the Great Depression. And they need the money because Germany can't pay those reparations because it was $3.3 billion. And then England and France don't have the money. No one has money. So we keep saying, oh, sure, I know you're good for it. They're not. They're not going to pay us back, and we're going to be in a lot of trouble. Washington Naval Conference, 1921. Essentially, Great Britain and Japan are on the verge of this naval war. Japan has continued to imperialize, militarize, get a really big navy. They continue to be super aggressive, continue to attack China, etc. through this time. And the Washington Naval Conference is our way of saying, everybody calm down right now. But it doesn't stick because obviously we have World War II, right? And then there's a guy whose name is Billy Mitchell. Billy Mitchell is going to tell everybody, he's going to say, listen, you're all crazy. It's not about your Navy. The next fight's up in the air. And everyone's going to say, what? You're nuts. People are going to be fighting in the sky? Okay, Billy. Of course, he's right, but no one believes him. And he was also super aggressive and confrontational. And even if you're a very smart person with a very good message, if you have a style like Billy Mitchell's and you're fighting with everyone, no one's going to hear it, right? So he kind of learns that the hard way. Last thing, it's going to be such a short video. Last thing is the Kellogg-Briand Pact. So the Kellogg-Briand Pact, what happens is France starts to get nervous the way things are shaking out in Europe. And again, like you have the Nazi party growing, you have all this stuff going on, and they start to say, ooh, I don't like this. And they say, let's all get together to form basically an organization like kind of the League of Nations would have been that says none of us are going to go to war. So Kellogg's our Secretary of State, and he is going to sign this Kellogg-Briand Pact with some 60 other nations in 1928. But obviously you would know what this was called. It would be more famous, and there would never be World War II if it actually worked. So you and I are going to talk about this with prohibition. You can have an amazing law. You can write down everything. You can have everything sound good. If you don't enforce it, and you don't make something a reality, and it continues to stay like this thing on paper, it's not going to work. It's just not going to work. So that's the case with the Kellogg-Briand Pact, because there is then World War II. So in a nutshell, those are the presidencies of Warren G. Harding, Calvin Coolidge, and those effects of World War I still lingering. This is your first video. I hope it went well. I will see you guys very soon. Bye.